right, I have started recording. Thank you all for coming out. I'm Brielle, a renting artist here at McGuffey Art Center. We're so excited to be able to share these artist talks with you all through McGuffey, one of the oldest artist-run cooperatives in the country, located in a historic elementary school building in downtown Charlottesville. The Art Center is a community of artists dedicated to practicing art and passing on the creative spirit to the greater Charlottesville community through creating opportunities for increasing access to art for all. We are happy to have you here today for the Artist Talk with Natalie Cox. Natalie is an abstract painter who recently completed a short residency at McGuffey Art Center for the months of February and March. We at McGuffey Art Center recently started a residency program to offer free limited time physical space to artists and writers in the community to work on proposed projects. Artists are able to pitch a use for the studio space and work on starting and finishing a body of work, or finishing a body of work. This program was built out of the need to support our local artist community during COVID-19 and to create opportunities for artists to be connected to a physical community of other artists while also building their portfolio of work. Our application cycle recently closed and we've got our artists for the next 3 months lined up. We hope this program continues into the future with the intention of opening another cycle of applications for space in the summer or fall of this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Sri. I'm another renting artist here at McGuffey, and I'll be helping out to moderate this talk along with Brielle. Before we hand it over to Natalie, I want to quickly go over some Zoom etiquette for this session, and it's just to keep mindful of being muted for the duration of this talk. The mute button is on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, and this session is being recorded, and it'll be available after the talk on McGuffey's website as well as our YouTube channel. That being said, if you don't want your face to be recorded, you can always turn off your video using the button on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. And if you have questions or comments that you want to share as far as interacting with other folks who are here today, or leave some comments for Natalie, you can always use the chat function to type in questions, and Brielle and I will keep an eye on that chat box and bring up any relevant questions for Natalie, but we're also going to do a short audience Q&A at the end. And thank you all for joining us. I'll get started with introducing Natalie and then pass the mic over to her. I'm going to share a little presentation so that we can share some of the works that she's created. All right. So Natalie Cox is originally from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and graduated from the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in the concentrations of drawing and painting. Natalie is a painter who works in acrylic paint and ink on canvas and on paper to create both small and large-scale abstract landscapes. She creates landscape paintings that represent her visual expression of a strangely abstract domain. Her work consists of non-representational landscape and portal-like compositions that create an illusionistic world that allows the viewer to decide what forms are familiar to them. We're so happy to have you here today, and I'm going to pass it over to Natalie to maybe share a little bit about her development as an artist or her artistic background a little bit as she's come toward this style of work that she's been doing. All right, I think I muted you, Natalie, so you might have to unmute to share a little bit.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, sorry, I'm the whole computer side of this is kind of new to me. I haven't been on many Zoom things, so it's going all over the place. But yeah, I'm Natalie. I've been interested in art since I was little, and I decided to start majoring in it in college, and initially started as a drawing major, or that was my concentration, and then added painting as my secondary, and I've kind of began to combine the two. Like, I guess that happened throughout college, and it's been developing ever since, but I'm graduated now, and it's been weird with COVID, you know. Luckily I ended up in Charlottesville, and this whole residency thing opened up and at McGuffey, and it's been incredible, and I don't think I could have ever accomplished so much without it. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's perfect. And I feel like we're all on the journey of getting to know Zoom, so you don't have to worry about that. Thank you for
I'm
sharing.
behind.
Thank you for sharing about your background a little bit. Sri and I have some questions that we've prepared. So we're going to talk a little bit with Natalie about some of the artistic processes she undergoes in her work. So I've got the first question. You were just talking about school, and I wanted to ask a little bit more about that. You recently graduated from an undergraduate degree program in studio art. Do you feel like there are things you learned in school that you've taken into your current art practice? Are there still things that have continued throughout?
For sure. I mean, I learned a lot in undergrad. One of the big, or I guess there's a couple like major things that have continued on from it. So one of my professors kind of challenged and pushed us all to work on a really large scale. And I don't know if I would have ever, gone to I don't know if I would have ended up experimenting with that otherwise, but that has definitely been like something that I am very interested in doing, like creating larger works. And that stemmed from kind of his push. And then another thing is, and actually it was a color theory course, and it was with my painting professor, and she I had her like throughout the whole time I was there. I was in and out of courses with her, but she was great. But I ended up doing a color theory like toward the end when I was graduating, and I don't know, I learned a lot about, I guess we were calling it like mud in a way, like the mixing and the importance of mixing paints. And so I especially when I'm working large scale, I paint can be expensive, so I prefer to kind of mix my own colors and into big glass jars so that I can kind of make it spread around. But also you can't really get those weird unique colors from the tube, I feel like. And I kind of started getting that from her, and that was all in undergrad. So yeah, that's definitely continued.
Your colors are really awesome and magical. That explains it.
Yeah, that definitely explains it. I was gonna say, like, your color choice is just amazing, and like what you choose or why you choose to leave certain empty space, and why you choose to like have the bright, vibrant colors in certain pieces and then earth tones in others. It totally makes sense. And then also like the cakiness with the mud kind of also that also fits. I guess I have the next question, and it's how do you come up with some of the inspiration for your abstract landscapes? Do you plan out the compositions for them, or do you just kind of play with materials until you find a composition that you like?
Yeah, so I mean, I never plan any of it out. I kind of, yeah, it's very intuitive art making. So one mark is, it's informative. Like the next it's all informative based off of what I put down. It's very intuitive. So I typically, I don't know, I guess my, like the forms and everything, like it relates back to like, definitely relates to nature and things like that, but it's very much of like kind of letting the paint do what it wants, and then seeing, and then me making a decision based off of that. Yeah, I don't
I think that answers it really well, actually. You're like,
yeah, it's very intuitive.
you're giving the paint a voice. It's like you and the paint are having a conversation, and you just kind of let it
I'm
say
kind of letting it do its thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have the next question, which is just, would you share with us a little bit about the recurring themes you explore in your work? Because obviously there are ties between the works, and just curious about some of the, like, some thoughts behind them, the themes.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I feel like, and it's maybe not always, but in a lot of my pieces, like the composition is set like off from the edges, and to me that's kind of, I'm kind of creating like a little floating world in a way. Like it's kind of the way I've looked at it. I've always and when I was little and stuff, I would always like create little worlds and stuff like that, and I feel like there's something that is kind of happening there in that sense. So that, and that is, there is kind of a landscape feel to most of them. I feel like if not all of them, you can kind of see that in a way, even if it is enclosed, it's still there's like some kind of a ground and a sky. So that's definitely a big reoccurring thing. Other than that, I definitely there's the bright colors. I feel like I get drawn to those and end up when I start with one and then it's back to the intuitiveness. I decide what the next color is going to be based off of how it's looking. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of decisions, I guess, made within my art that I don't know. I don't know. I get there's I don't know. I guess it's hard to respond
be
to that.
an artist I know
Sometimes.
says it can be really hard to talk about art because art is sort of what you do when you don't need to talk about it with words. So it's
Yeah,
effective.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really effective. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also totally makes sense because your style is it is very energetic and it's playful, and a lot of it is you're not planning things in advance. So sometimes it comes from just what you're feeling in the moment, how colors look next to one another, and that part of just like playing with your materials and allowing them to speak rather than like trying to tell a very specific story.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like one thing, I mean, there's a lot of fluidity and stuff throughout my art and like it's like a lot of movement and stuff. And I think it is kind of reflective of nature in the way that like a system, like it's like a functioning system and how one thing affects the next. And I guess that's kind of what I was trying to say. And it took me a minute.
Yeah,
But
I definitely see that.
there's a little, yeah.
Yeah, and also like you as an artist move while you create. So that also that the way that you're moving as you're like spreading paint, especially in your larger works, like when you're throwing paint on the canvas or like on paper, it is a very physical process. And that also shows in the energy of like the lines and the mark making that you have in your pieces. I guess
Thank
our
you.
next question is about, and I kind of touched on this, which is, are there like certain color palettes that you're drawn to working with, and why are you drawn to those colors?
Well, yeah, this was something I guess I was even kind of talking to my mom about because she realized something that I didn't even, I mean, I guess it is what's happening, but I never thought about it. But like it seems like I guess my colors are chosen based off of kind of the time of year and like the surrounding mood of like the environment and like as a whole. And it's spring now, so a lot of like my colors are very like springy and bright. And I don't know why or how that happens, but it might have something to do with that, like how I'm feeling, or if I'm like she was saying like all the ones I made during the winter were very like harsh and like kind of angry red colors. And I was like, I don't know, I guess that kind of makes sense to me now that I think about it. It's kind of, it has to deal, I'm not a fan of the cold weather, so that might be just something that happens also intuitively, I guess. The the brighter, warmer, happier colors are kind of popping out now. I just am drawn to them during like the warmer weather, I guess.
A lot of your works right now having bright colors,
Yeah,
especially probably the ones during your time in the residency program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've all been it's like bright bright blues, but then like pops of like orange or coral in there, so it's been kind of happy colors, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was excited to have this residency, so maybe that's a whole reason. I was very motivated in there.
Yeah,
a good feeling.
I know we touched on, well, we touched on a slide, there we go, of your materials that you use in your work, but will you tell us more about them? You mentioned the mud before, and yeah, I would just love for people to know a little more about your process.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess it's changed. It's kind of developed a lot, but I what I always need is like usually a sink or a bucket of water, which at McGuffey I had like my buckets of water, my giant paintbrushes, and and a lot of gesso. But I recently started sorry, there's noise. I recently started kind of playing with really thick textures, and I got some, like, there's molding paste and modeling paste and like different mediums like that to build up a lot of like really heavy thick texture, which is what I'm really into right now. Like the cracking and stuff. That actually started because I was using some really old acrylic paint, and it ended up just drying completely cracked, and I was like, this is awesome. So I've been kind of experimenting with stuff like that. I always need tons of space because I make a big mess and I spread out a lot. But other than that, I mean, it's like I can also work on a smaller scale. So it's like I don't need all those things, but like if I'm gonna be as creative as I can be, I need all the space and tons of water and a big mess.
I love it. It's a happy mess, as they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really awesome, like during your time in the space, to see you like have like 10 pieces in progress that were all like drying in like different stages of drying, and like getting like you jump to the next thing so you could put down the next layer. And I loved seeing that, just like walking by and seeing how much progress you'd been making. And I have like on the fly a question, which is like, I'm curious about like you use a lot of materials to make that cakey texture, but do you find that like, are you impatient while you're waiting for something to dry? Like, do you feel like you need to like jump to the next thing because you have a lot of creative energy?
Yeah, I actually I feel like I need to be yeah, so I'm not really, I like the fact that something has to take time to dry, because I don't know, I guess especially it was very apparent during the residency, since it was only 2 months, that I was like trying to do a lot as fast as I could, and I'm constantly working on multiple things at once to like, so it's like if I can't sit down with one thing, I can, sit down with another thing, which is fine with me. And so, I mean, and it's more than just two things at once. So it's, I don't know, I kind of like that. And I also like the whole process of throwing things down and seeing how it's going to look like the next day or something, and see if it, what happened, but kind of experimentation a lot. But yeah, no, I'm not, I like to like definitely jump around on it all. Like, I mean, honestly, a lot of the images in this slideshow are not finished. Yeah, because and that's kind of my negative side on it, is like it takes a while to finish one thing because I'm hopping around to all of them at once. But I think it's a good strategy for me.
Yeah, no, that doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. I'm kind of like, that's so cool because you have so many works in progress. So you're just like never uninspired. Like you just have so many things that you could keep adding to. Because I remember one thing that you mentioned like a month ago, or I remember like popping into your studio and you were talking about how like if you didn't feel like painting one day, or like you had already laid down this like really wet layer, that while you were waiting for it to dry, you could work on doing smaller works at home, or like doing like pen outlines and working more detailed work while you waited for something that was more like abstract to dry.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, when did you come into this style of work that you're doing right now?
So let me think. So I guess this can kind of go into like the other artists that I've looked at and drawn inspiration from, along with like my own kind of thing. But so what I'm doing now started at McGuffey, like for sure. Like what I'm with all of this texturing and layering, it's like layers upon layers of stuff. That started while I was, this whole experiment thing is kind of developing and growing, and it's because of the time I spent in McGuffey for sure. But the continuation of like the outlining and stuff like that, like the all of that kind of thing, it stems from inspiration from other artists for sure, like other things I've seen and other, things of in nature. Just kind of is all kind of developing into this new thing now.
Now that you mentioned the spring colors, I'm seeing them in all of these little juicy textural pieces you've been making recently. I love it. That makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I think Sri and I couldn't ask for more than to have you doing something that started at McGuffey right now and being excited about that. That's our dream, I think, for this residency program. So let's see. I've got the next question, which is just about your draw to working abstract. So why are you drawn to this style of work? And specifically, well, abstract work, but then also the combination of painting and drawing.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I've always been, I don't know, I've always loved abstract art. I just, because of like the freedom of it, I guess. But with the drawing, I guess that is kind of where I initially got into art, because I always, the doodling and stuff like that when I was just always, I guess. It's always been very intricate and detailed and tiny things, even like, because I don't know, like I really am drawn to like very intricate tiny details. And from that, there is the hyper realism and stuff like that, and I understand doing that. I think that for me, I instead of incorporating that into abstract, I don't know, I feel like there's something more, like you feel less confined or less like pressured for a certain outcome, or of something, when you're kind of doing it freely on your own. And like it's just something, I don't know, but and there's something contemplate, like, so I get like the freedom of like moving around the whole canvas and like jumping around it and creating that energy and all of that onto the with the very gestural strokes. But then I when I don't have the energy for that, I can sit down and kind of meditatively incorporate like the tiny intricate details drawing like aspect of it, which I mean, I don't know, I've even tried to like not incorporate, like to like leave something the way it is, but I always feel like I need to incorporate some kind of detail or something, because it's always what has drawn me into things. I've always been interested in looking at that.
I think it's a really beautiful balance, and I feel like it sounds really satisfying to have the actual like stuff where you get to move your body, and then the stuff where you kind of get to do the contemplative work. It's a really nice balance, and it shows up. Your work feels balanced. So
Thanks. That's something I guess I was working on too, is balancing that.
And I'm also curious a little bit about, we'd mentioned this earlier in this talk, which is that your work is just so energetic, it's dynamic, and it's like flowing with colors and intricate details that a viewer has to like sit there and find all these little hidden gems that you've put in with all of your drawing. And I'm kind of curious about whether you feel like your work is representative of you in some way.
Yeah, I guess that, it is a very, very physical process. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm working out when I'm doing it, because I'm like, depending on how big it is, because I'm like allowing the paint to drip and drop everywhere, and I'm jumping to one side and moving, like lifting it and moving it, and kind of just running all around in circles around either the canvas or the unstretched canvas or the paper or whatever it is. But it's a very physical process, so there's a lot of energy that goes into the marks that look energetic, I guess. And then everybody has their days where they're not as energetic, and so that's when I guess the very it's like a much more quiet process of just sitting down and slowly, quietly, adding in the details and those little things that I feel like I guess it could be kind of representative of just the moods that I have, or probably anyone has. But yeah, I definitely can see that. There's energy, but there's also like a quietness in there.
That's a great answer. In you saying that now, I'm also noticing how like contemplative and that meditative aspect of just being able to sit there and outline things very slowly and pick and choose what you decide to highlight and what you don't decide to highlight.
I wanted to bring attention to the piece on the right on this slide where you can see the sort of the side that hasn't had the details put into it and the side that has, and how much the details transform the piece. It's really wild to look at the difference between the two sides. I was curious about how much you're attracted to working with other media. If you feel pretty much just like you want to work with paint, or if there's other stuff that you feel attracted to, maybe isn't right at the moment, but that you could see yourself working in.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in sculpture, and it's from my experience in school, and that it's just something that isn't as accessible. It's not, like, because I did sculpture when clay and welding and different things, like casting, like metal casting. So it was different things, but you can't, without the all the equipment and all that, the kiln and everything, like you can't, I can't do that as easily. So I just haven't really figured out how to get back into that kind of thing, but I really, really loved doing it. And I feel like it can also be a really interesting way to try to bring some kind of abstraction over whatever I'm doing into sculpture. That would be really cool. So yeah, I'm definitely interested, but maybe not right now.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering actually while we were looking at these beautiful pieces of the mushrooms that you did in college. Is that when these are from? Okay. Yeah. And just imagining what you could do with sort of the landscapes you're currently creating if you tried to sort of recreate them in a 3-dimensional thing. I'm super excited about it already.
Yeah. And I could even see like the crack. Now I'm like paying attention to the cracks that are on some of the glazes. And I'm like, oh my God, she's going to get so involved in that. It's going to be so cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I hope you get access to be able to explore other mediums. I know, like, I have also felt constrained by the limitations of what you're able to access to do, to especially like explore sculptural mediums. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no, yeah.
And I just want to mention quickly that we do have a couple more questions for Natalie, but if anybody has a burning question that they want to ask, please put them into the chat box and we'll bring them up. And I'm gonna switch back a couple of slides because we have some pieces from when you were in the residency program, and I kind of want to touch on like your time specifically in the residency space. What were you drawn to making or working on while at McGuffey? And did you find that the space was conducive to that creative process?
Yeah, I mean, so first thing, I guess, was definitely to immediately start working on a much larger scale, because you know, I couldn't do that otherwise. And so like, yeah, I really started, that was like my main focus, I guess. But like, in order to do those, I always am working on smaller things to kind of inform the bigger things, you know, kind of just like, I don't know if they're testers or something, but it's because they are their own thing, but it's just kind of almost like a sketchbook, I guess, in a way, but like making smaller paintings. And so I was really just like trying to jump on with the big stuff while I was there. And the space was awesome, like all the lighting and everything there. And I mean, that whole room, it was definitely a good spot to do it. So, I mean, I think I got a lot more done than I could have ever thought. I mean, I don't know. It was a very motivating space, and being around everyone there it was great.
Will you tell us like how big these are so people know? Because these are pretty big, right?
Yeah. Okay. So okay, I'm
Just roughly.
right now,
Just
I'm
rough-
not able to see where
Oh,
we're
you
at.
can the slide. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I haven't been on the slides at all.
Oh, okay.
So
That's cool.
yeah, I didn't know.
But, I think
didn't really know. That's kind of why for a second I kept,
the piece that's
What?
on the
What?
slide is the largest canvas one that that I remember seeing in your space. It was like big, like you had like unmounted canvas.
Sort of brick
that one.
reds
Okay,
and
yeah.
blues. Mhm.
The unstretched one. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah. Okay. And I have. Okay. I'm trying to think. That should be. It's about seven. Oh, almost 7 feet, like long
Mhm.
by like 4.5 maybe high.
Yeah.
Or
Because some of the other pieces
yeah,
you do are like 6 inches squared, right?
tiny little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really neat that you're able to convey such a similar feeling in a little world and a big world. I almost
Yeah.
want to like make a
Yeah.
mural so we can step into it.
Yeah.
I'm like
awesome.
I'm super excited to see where these large pieces go because just like Brielle was saying, like the larger pieces kind of feel like doorways where you can just like step into this totally different realm, this abstract world that's just there's just so much movement and there's so much detail to look at. And I know you're not done with it because I know there's no like the drawing hasn't been added yet. And so it's like this world is still developing and it's really neat to see where it is right now.
Yeah. I was wondering what you feel are the constraints or necessities tied to the work you make. In what way is your work particular?
So I guess um with constraints, I mean, I obviously need paint and like something to paint on, but also I guess, you know, space is a big one. For if I'm going to be making like a bigger painting, but I don't know, I feel like the time is always, you know, I mean, life gets crazy, but there's, you know, the kind of constraints that everyone would have when it comes to making art. But for me specifically, I think now based off of the residency, I'm absolutely going to need like thick layers of some form of medium or whatever I can do, because like there's no way I'm going to stop using all of the textures and everything that I've been trying to, you know, create here. So I don't know, I guess there's that. I don't know. Yeah, it depends on what I'm trying to you know, how large I'm going or how small, but there's always can be like a challenge, I guess. I think transporting the art is also hard. You know, when something is, if it is like, say that big one were to be stretched, then like it wouldn't fit anywhere into a car. So it's like transporting things has always kind of been an issue, even in undergrad. So that's something that needs to be figured out, I guess, for me.
Kind of love that you still create as big as you can go, even though you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it afterwards, but.
I was also going to say we need to start a GoFundMe for a big old truck for Natalie.
That would be great.
The art truck.
Yes.
I totally get it. And I love that you've been bitten by the texture bug. Sri and I both know that bug well.
Yes.
I love it.
Good luck going back ever. It's going to be really hard.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah. And I know that, like, I'm also curious a little bit, like, if you feel like that you're still going to play between the large and the small, like to continue to create variance in size. Like if it were an ideal world where you had all the space that you could ever have, do you think that you would still make small work? Or do you just feel like you're just going to keep going bigger and bigger?
I'm obsessed with the really tiny ones. Like, I mean, they're like this big, so it's like they're really cute. And I don't know, there's something about it. I don't think I could. To me, I think I am looking at it more of like as a sketchbook thing, you know, because then I can just kind of pull it out and just like work on it, you know, anywhere. Which with the larger ones, you mean it's just like you have to be in one spot to do it. So I don't think I'll ever stop doing tiny ones. I really do love that. This is also a random thing I just wanted to add in there. Like okay, so I kind of stepped away from using any pens on any of the paintings, and I think even in all the ones I've shown here, I've ended up using a really tiny paintbrush with a mixture of black and white ink to either have a dark gray or a lighter gray, depending on the different one. But that's something I also started doing during the residency. And to me, it's just a lot. I mean, it takes forever, and it's annoying, but it's also like not annoying. It's also very like slow and meditative, kind of that same thing, but in a different way. And you can control the how super tiny the mark can get. And so it's like, I don't know. That's just something I kind of wanted to add in there that I'm now doing, I guess.
That's really neat, and that actually adds such a different quality to your work. Because at first, we have one of the pieces with the gray paint lines, and I am now like, you did that with that paintbrush? I'm amazed.
I am too.
That
Wow.
is so detailed and very, very patient.
The power of a good paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
That's
it's
awesome.
like one hair.
Yeah, I know.
Love it. I also feel like the gray is very subtle, so it just like adds a little bit of body to the paint, but then it's not like illustrative, like in where it's like the black adds a very illustrative, like comic kind of touch to it, whereas this is gentler.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I was thinking too.
And one other question that we had was about, do you feel like your current body of work is shifting or has shifted in some way, at least since you were in school or like in the past year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of goes back to what I've kind of been developing since the residency. And I guess what I was just even saying about how I don't use any kind of pen anymore. But I have also been experimenting a lot with the texture and the building up, like so many layers. So I used to only start with just a thin washes, and they would kind of get thicker. It was just like mixtures of water and acrylic. And I would build onto those. But now I'm kind of starting with like really thick like forms of, either gesso or medium, and then painting thinner things on top of that until it gets to like the really fine stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of, I guess that almost seems like it's kind of swapped in a way, the whole process, which is interesting. But other than that, I think I have become a bit like more experimentative. I'm experimenting more with, if I go too far with something, then I don't care to just start over, like wipe it all out, and with gesso, and because then there's so many paintings underneath the one painting that they kind of even can show through, and like that's something I guess you can't really see in pictures of it, but especially the big ones, like there's been so many things underneath those because canvas is expensive, and so I recycle them just by using them, and the gesso is not always like fully covering, so like there's colors that can come through, and it's or even like bumps and textures that come through that I don't know, or it makes it a lot more interesting to see versus just a flat surface.
It's awesome. There's almost like a storytelling nature to them of like previous things that have happened on the canvas. That's really cool. We have one more question, and that is, what are you excited about creatively this year? Do you see this body of work progressing further, or do you have your sights set on other creative endeavors you'd like to explore?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to keep kind of working toward I'm going to keep working on this body of work for sure, and developing what I've discovered during my residency at McGuffey. But I will, in November, be having a show at Athenaeum Gallery in Alexandria, and I wasn't expecting to like have this at all. So I mean, I'm really excited about it. I don't even know what's going to go into it yet. So I'm just going to keep kind of working on stuff to like bring there and be like, take whatever, whatever you like, we'll put in there. I mean, I don't know. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm definitely going to keep working on what I'm doing, and keep applying to other residencies and things like that, just so I can kind of keep the momentum going. Yeah.
So exciting. We have the page up right now of Athenaeum Gallery and their address and stuff. So take note, everyone, if you want to make a little trip. What month is it? November?
Yeah, it's in November. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So it's a long time from now, which is cool because I have a lot of time to finish stuff, which is, I mean, it's good to have time.
What we talked about briefly earlier in I think a week ago or so is that you got a whole bunch set up. Like you did a lot of the like chunky background painting for a lot of the bigger pieces, right? And now you get to kind of have like the meditation with them because you were trying to take advantage of the McGuffey space. So now you've got to just sit down and like work on all these little fine details on all these pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, then it works out perfectly. That was great to have that space for all of that. I needed it, and now I'm here, with my niece and nephew. I'm in my niece's room, but that's where I mean, I can sit here and I can do that without like making a giant mess all over their house. So it works out.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Natalie. I'm looking at the chat box, and nobody's got any little comments yet. Any questions out there?
Any questions?
We did do a pretty thorough grilling.
I know we did. We did ask a lot of questions.
Natalie survived it though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that long pause at the beginning there was me trying to figure out why I couldn't see the slideshow at the same time. It was like, what is that? What is it? That's why I was like, and then I was like, what did you, I didn't know what you asked, and that's why I was like, And I don't know, I was trying to save it, but I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Feel comforted that the slideshow has been going on the whole time. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I was like,
It looks great.
Like, what is? Okay.
Catherine Peterson says no questions, but good luck on your show, Natalie.
Thank you. That's awesome. Very cool.
I can't wait to see it. I'm going to definitely try.
I'm very excited.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I would like to say thank you so much, Natalie, for taking the time to be with us here today and for putting together so many beautiful photos for us and detail shots and like all this good stuff to make it a visual journey for everyone. It's been a real pleasure to have you at McGuffey, and we are super excited to hear about how much your work has evolved while you've been here. It's been really awesome to meet you. Personally, I can't wait to have one of your pieces in my home, which we will talk about. But yeah, we're just really excited to have been able to share this opportunity with you. And if everybody wants to follow Natalie's work, you can follow her on her artist website, which is nataliecox.org. I will put that in the box.
I need to up.
It looks great anyway, but
yeah, and you know, now you took all these photos for this presentation and it's all perfect and ready to go for you to throw on your website.
Do you have an Instagram, awesome, Natalie, or not at the moment?
I do. I haven't been on Instagram in like months. I don't know, but I do have one. I used to. I need to get back into it, but yeah, it's Nat Cox.
Nat Cox. Okay.
2 X's, so just Nat and then Cox with 2 X's.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, we have a few little closing statements that we want to mention before we head out for the day, but I want to thank everyone for coming here to join us for this artist talk. And I'd like to take a moment to talk about our shows that are up for April and May at McGuffey Art Center. We have some in-person exhibitions. Actually, we have five exhibitions currently up at McGuffey. And in the main gallery, we have Communicating the Climate Crisis and Revisiting the New Deal, which are 2 bodies of work by digital artist and illustrator Barbara Schenefield. And then on the first floor, we have Girls I Know by painter and ceramicist Sophie Gibson. And then we have Winter and Spring by photographer Erin Farrington. And then on the second floor, we've got Journeys in Watercolor by watercolorist Leanne Geiger. And then Layer Upon Layer, which is a digital collage work show by artist Carol Grant. And you can visit these exhibitions in person at McGuffey Art Center during our open public hours, which are Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 5 p.m. And the artist works are also available for sale through our website, McGuffeyArtCenter.com. And our next resident in the McGuffey Artist Residency Program is Eric Sorensen. Now based in Charlottesville, Virginia, Eric is a painter and medical student at the University of Virginia. His current practice includes both water-based works on paper and oil paintings on linen. His works are informed by the trusting, intimate, physical, and psychological scrutiny involved in medicine. His paintings communicate empathy. They attest to the importance of bearing witness to something outside of yourself, and his practice is rooted in the goal of expanding the field of painting by advocating for a more inclusive, open-minded empathy. At the end of his residency stay, we're going to be hosting a virtual artist talk, so sometime in early May. If you want to keep an eye out for that and stay tuned to hear more about his studio practice and his developing body of work. And you can also follow him and find out more about him at his website, www.ericsorensen.com, or his Instagram, which is Eric B. Sorensen. And that's actually all of the updates that we have for you as far as McGuffey goes. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. And then a big thank you to Natalie Cox, who has been so wonderful in the past couple months. And it's just been really cool to see how prolific you've been in the space and how it's actually now affected your practice. I'm so glad that that you were able to have this time.
Me too. It was awesome. It was great.
I just feel like you were a really great candidate for this kind of project or program where like you were really serious about putting all your time that you could be in there in it. And it was so great to see you in there in every moment. And yeah, it was inspiring, I think, for the rest of us too. We were like, stamina.
Oh yeah. It was like every other day, something new was happening. Things had shifted significantly. Suddenly there was stuff up on the walls. Like it was
I
really fun
love
to
seeing
see.
your process too. For people who can't, who haven't seen McGuffey's space or specifically the residency space, it's kind of a fishbowl. It has like windows on the walls so you can look in from the hallway. So it was just really cool to see Natalie kind of jumping around her canvases all the time or just always at work, and then to watch the shifting of the room and watch her take over the space and then move around. And it was just really cool. So thank you for being so alive in the space. The space
Oh my
appreciates
goodness.
it.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without that space with everyone there. It's awesome.
Well, good luck on everything, Natalie, and we will be in touch and can't wait to see what
Yeah.
you do next.
Awesome. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.